Well, good everyone, and welcome to council for our first meeting in October. What a beautiful week it has been. This is the 28th meeting of the 145th council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. First off, is there any declarations of interest, disclosures of interest, any of those things that could come to any rhyme of anything I just said? Seeing none, moving on to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on September the 15th, 2025 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with following business. First committee is strategic direction and development. First item relates to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the property at 43954 Southdale Line. I have a motion that report PD 4425 relating to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 43954 Southdale Line be received for information, and further, the council authorized staff to prepare a site-specific draft amendment to zoning bylaw 50-88 to permit a proposed townhouse development on lands at 43954 Southdale Line, described as part of Lot 10 Concession 7 in Yarmouth, being Part 2 on Plan 11R 10582 in the city, and further that a public meeting be scheduled for November 10th, 2025, in accordance with Ontario Regulation 545/06 as amended. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions, because this is an interesting parcel because it was landlocked. So just a few things. We don't have a site plan obviously for it yet, but in terms of the configuration, I have some concerns. For instance, people are going to be pulling out of here directly on Southdale Road, which is 60 kilometers. And so that's a little bit of a concern. I always think about in these condo, I know it's not a condo complex, but like in condo complexes, is the garbage truck going to be backing into it? Like, is it going to back into it, or how's that going to work? We don't want to be backing up a garbage truck in a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone, things like that. And then just my one comment is, when I saw that there's a 5-meter setback, I went to my friend Google and asked the length of a Ford F-150. No offense to GM and Rams and everything. It's 5.3 meters. So I find it interesting that you can't fit a full-size truck probably in the driveway, but of course people will know that. But mostly I'm concerned about that exiting directly onto Southdale and how that's going to work. Is it going to be like a U-shape? Like, what do they think it's going to look like in terms of the parking and movement through it? And the last thing actually is this going to be like a public street, or is it all parking lot? And who's going to shovel the snow? So when I was looking at that, I don't have a problem with it. Just it's such a peculiar, isolated thing that it begs to ask some of those questions. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Councillor. Through your worship. So the entering and exiting will be reviewed by Environmental Services. The applicant has advised they do have a site plan coming in imminently. So that will be also a good time to look at those matters, including the garbage loading or the garbage truck maneuvering. In terms of the 5-meter setback, so that is the way it's configured. In retrospect, I should have attached the site plan. That would have been really helpful in the report. I'll do that in the future. But effectively, the units are oriented so that the rows go north-south, so the units face east-west. So then they'll come in off, they propose to sort of come in off Southdale, and so their driveways would be off of the internal road, which would be it would just be part of the townhouse development. It would just be part of the that rental or condo, if they so chose to go that way, community. And then the rear yard is effectively actually the interior side yard setback. So it functions like that, so that there'd be that internal road that the vehicles be entering and exiting onto, and then going onto and off of Southdale.
Go ahead.
So will that count as a street? Is it going to have a street name, or is that simply the parking lot, or the, you know what I mean? How is that going to work in terms of who's responsible for it? Thanks.
Yeah. No, all good questions. And through you, Your Worship, and Michelle's correct in all those answers. It will be a private road, so it will not be a public road. It won't have its own street name. The development may have its own development name. These situations are not ideal, but they're not uncommon. When you have a holdout landowner, when a developer is looking to accumulate lands that holds out, and then ultimately down the road they will develop. That's what's happened in this case. So we're adapting to trying to maximize the best use for this site. Ideally, it should have been connected to the development that's happening all around it, but it's not uncommon. I think we're getting a positive result here. There are some, because it's a private road, a private development, there are some, I guess, exceptions to some of the regulations that you otherwise wouldn't see on a private road. But a lot of the questions, like I said, there's great questions, and other councillors have similar questions, great questions to bring forward at the public meeting when the developer will be here. And we'll have the full schematics of what they're proposing available for comment.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Well, my question was halfway down in the report, I read where you need municipal pipe sanitary, municipal storm sewages before anything's being developed. Who's responsible for putting that in? The city is responsible for setting it all up, or is the developer, whoever wants to do this?
Through your worship, the developer is responsible for all those connections and for all those internal connections.
Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to city-initiated official plan amendment relating to the community planning permit system. I have motion that report PD 4525 relating to the city-initiated official plan amendment for the community planning permit system be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Couple comments and questions. One, in the report under comments, it says, "What are the cons?" And in the response, the cons may include that a second system of zoning and process for the municipality to set up, maintain, and it is new. How are you going to ensure that this is not a con and that you turn this into a positive and not something that gets in the way of development?
Through your worship to the councillor, we have been having some discussions through planning about that very matter, and to make sure that what we're essentially doing is when you do a community planning permit bylaw, it's replacing the zoning. So we're going to be transferring a lot of what's in the zoning into the community planning permit system. We do want some consistency, but it's also an opportunity to update things and provide a framework for that.
Go ahead, Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much. In the report 10.12.11, talking about the CPP bylaw, do you have any inkling yet as to how the process is going to work, as to what is in and what is out? And in that, as that process is developed to figure out what's in, what's out, how you're going to ensure community input in that process, and how that process isn't going to allow for NIMBYism to rear its head. Because I could see once a neighborhood or an area in town is being considered for a location, all of a sudden people are going to come out of the woodwork, or potentially coming out of the woodwork, that this is great, but just not in my backyard.
Brendan?
Thank you through your worship to the councillor, and my colleagues may wish to join in on any response. And they're good questions. We are looking at proceeding with the pilot area this fall. We do have an obligation under our HIF action plan to do that. And it would be perhaps more ideal if we can find a spot that is a little bit more focused. Maybe it's not necessarily an existing neighborhood right now, but a vacant site that has potential. There would be a public process. So you're familiar with the public process of what you go through for a rezoning or a new zoning bylaw. There'll be some elements of that. However, it would include a little bit more in depth. I think that's what we're looking at right now, is that similar to what we did with these, we did some additional open house. We could do additional public workshop and open house. There's going to be notification. It does have to follow some statutory legislated requirements. So there's still going to be the public meeting here at council. There's going to be council involvement, and we'd be looking at direction from council and public about some of the matters that would go in the bylaw. Particularly, there's items about community benefits and the overall parameters of the development. And ultimately, council would be the decider for the bylaw to set what are the permitted uses, the discretionary uses, the development standards.
Great. Another one, Councillor Peters?
Just to follow up on that, if there's going to be a pilot project developed, I don't know how far along the secondary plan is for the railway lands, but to me, the railway lands could make a great pilot project for something like this. We already know via social media that, you know, some people aren't pleased with the direction that things are going over there. Some people don't understand. Perhaps we haven't, or some of the property owners haven't conveyed what their own long-term plans are. But it just strikes me as that has some potential to be a good pilot project.
Through your worship to the councillor, you're correct. That is a good area. And recently there was a report about starting the secondary plan for that area. And we did embed through planning some direction to investigate a community planning permit bylaw for there. I believe there's a follow-up reports are coming about the scope in terms of reference. As we're kind of putting that together, we have been looking at a potential other area to pilot it that maybe is more streamlined, more effective, just so we can kind of work through this process and understand how to do these bylaws, because that's a little bit more of a complex area actually once you get into that secondary plan area, but it is an appropriate place that we'd be investigating.
Yeah, and through you, just to add to that, you're absolutely right. That is an ideal area. We've identified it in previous reports that we brought forward to council in terms of our launching a secondary plan for the railway land. So that is definitely something that is we will be considering with the proponents for the railway lands, but also for future secondary plans that we do. Those are the ideal sites, I think, where we can take advantage of this type of process, because it can be built into that robust engagement process that we'll be undertaking through those planning approvals.
Right. Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, the purpose, I'm assuming, is to encourage growth and to encourage infill and development. So I'm just wondering if your department has had any talks yet with the with Treasury in terms of, to be successful, it's going to take more dollars. If we're going to have more people taking up the offer, and we're in one of the documents mentioned how we're increasing the funding for different aspects of it. So I'm just wondering where we're at in talks as we start to build this year's budget, where staff is at in terms of those ramifications.
Yeah, through your worship, no, great question. Since it's day one of the new city treasurer's
I was going to
time
ask
on the
him to
job,
come
we
with
might wait till day 2 or 3 to bombard him with some of the specific questions. But prior, other than that, part of the Housing Accelerator funding that we received by checking off and achieving these accomplishments in terms of initiating the OP amendments and the zoning amendments and new bylaws, that makes us eligible for some funding. So that will help with some of these initiatives and funding opportunities. But there will be other investments that the city would have to make, and we'll work through that with internally with staff and ultimately with council's approval.
Great. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to city-initiated official plan zoning, community improvement plan amendments for additional residential units and financial incentives. I have a motion that report PD 4625 relating to city-initiated official plan zoning, community improvement plan amendments for additional residential units and financial incentives be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Similar, it sort of relates to a question Councillor Clark just asked on the previous report, but I'm curious. I too am curious as we expand. You know, the CIP program it starts out sort of trying to improve the downtown core, and then we widen the parameters of it, and now it's in front of us to go citywide with it, or virtually citywide. Not necessarily looking for the answer tonight, but that is going to have a financial impact on revenue streams, and then the fact that we're, you know, deferring some charges and delaying or implementing tax increases, things like that. So I think it's important for council to have in front of it, and at budget time, a side report as to what the financial impact is of expanding the CIP citywide.
Sure. Through your worship to the councillor, good points. One, through the budget process documents, we are going to be including a summary of the HAF funding. And that is the key item that's mentioned a little bit in the report under financial impact. So any of these expanded CIP programs, which are going to be very helpful to go citywide, would be funded from the HAF. So there's an allotment that we have in 2025. And so whatever additional uptake we have from these expanded programs would be funded from the federal grant HAF money. So it would not have an impact, therefore, to City of St. Thomas budgets and taxpayer. And same thing for 2026 as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, through your worship, councillor's right, and that's something that we will commit to do going forward in terms of reporting on the success and the uptake in CIP funding in terms of how many units we're creating, where we're creating these new residential units, like whether they are in the downtown, which that is, you're absolutely right. The primary intent was to create some incentive programs to help with facade improvements in our downtown heritage district to provide some funding so that some of those buildings can be renovated in the second and third stories for more residential units. And we're seeing that there's real success happening there. But we're also seeing throughout the community that there's uptake in people using the CIP program to help them fund some new. It's creating very effective incentives for new residential development. So these are things that we will report to council on in terms of what the benefits are, the number of units that we're creating, and what the costs are, so we can continue to monitor it and make changes down the road to that program as well. It's council's program. Council can make amendments to it whenever it wants. So we'll keep you updated on that as we go forward.
Councillor Peters and then Councillor Clark.
And thank you, Worship. The other one I was pleased to see that was flagged in this is the issue of lighting, because it's one thing to have lighting for one house, but now if we're adding additional units to a property, I can think of some properties, let's say on Metcalf Street, that have 180-foot deep lots, or Balaclava Street that has 180-foot deep lots as well too, that deep lot has the potential to impact on a number of neighbors. So I hope that, I know lighting has been raised in the past, and that you continue to monitor that and ensure that as this is implemented and rolled out, that we're not indirectly going to have an impact on existing residents.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, through you. I just wondered about the approval process. Is it first come, first serve, and then when the money's gone, it's gone? Or is there a calendar approval date and people have to get the projects in front of you by a certain date?
It is, through your worship, it is a first come, first serve. We do monitor it. We don't ever want to get to a point where the funds are dry. It's kind of hard to anticipate that because sometimes a project is approved in 2003, for example, or 2023, but it's actually not developed and occupied, and the payouts don't occur until 2 years down the road. So it's something that we constantly monitor, and we do have the flexibility as a municipality that if there are no funds there, then we have the option to just kind of pause or come to council to see if there's the ability to get some more revenues to fund some of these projects.
Okay. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Your Worship. As council knows, my biggest concern is the parking in the backyards of residential properties. And I noticed in the report, it talks about the fencing being 1.5 to 2 meters in height. I had to go back and get my tape measure out to change that over to feet and inches, but it seems to be 5 foot to 6'7" is what we're looking for fencing. I'm not sure if 6'7" is the maximum height of a fence in St. Thomas, but how do we eliminate the 5-foot fence, which most of us in here will be able to look over? I'd rather have it 6'7" or higher so that it doesn't become an eyesore with cars parked in the backyard of your neighbor affecting my house. How do we ensure that higher fences are the norm?
Thanks, through your worship, to the councillor. Yes, thanks for noticing that. Something that we heard from council throughout this process about the potential if there was rear yard parking lot introduced with one of these 4-unit possibilities. And so we've recommended in the bylaw to have the landscape setback from a parking lot, but also the privacy fence. The privacy fence was more intended for screening and for like headlight glare and things like that. It was given a range. It's a little bit difficult to have an exact height and exactly hit that if the grade is changing. Different heights are different amounts, so there was a range put in there. I don't know if we're necessarily married to it being exactly 1.5 to 2.0 meters. It's a little bit based on some other municipal zoning bylaw examples of fences. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues if they have more.
Yeah,
Please.
I'm just adding to that, through your worship. The maximum height for a fence in a residential zone in our zoning bylaw currently is that 2 meters, which does equate to 6 feet, 6 inches, 6 feet, 7 inches. So that's the maximum height. So that's why it was put in the bylaw for this too, because it was sort of seen as that's the existing standard. So then just not looking to increase beyond that, because that helps provide a bit of a sort of a sweet spot between, allowing privacy, but also not having shadow impacts or creating some visual impacts too that could be challenging.
And through you, Your Worship, to the question, just as a final note, I think this is something that we're recommending and bringing forward, and it's something over and above what is required in other municipalities and even in our municipalities, but it's just there so that there is consideration given to providing some screening and some fencing. So providing that range of, whether it's 5 to 6.5 feet is appropriate in terms of providing that buffer. And we're comfortable in maintaining that going forward, just to provide that flexibility.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to contribution agreement for Indwell Balaclava, the affordable and supportive housing. I have a motion that report SCSS 2425 relating to the contribution agreement for Indwell Balaclava affordable and supportive housing be received for information, and further that a bylaw be prepared authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the municipal contribution agreement attached to report SCSS 2425, which outlines the obligations of Indwell and the City of St. Thomas as it relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund contribution of $1.95 million towards the creation of 78 affordable housing dwelling units with on-site supportive services. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Councillor Taylor.
My favorite line in this report is there is no financial impact to the city of St. Thomas. Congratulations.
I kind of like that one too. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next two items are notices from the Committee of Adjustment. The first one is notice of decision relating to the permitting of a detached garage with a maximum building height of 5.2 meters, whereas zoning bylaw permits a maximum accessory building height of 4 meters, and that's at 4 Prince Albert Street. The second one was to permit a sunroom 4.87 meters from the rear lot line, whereas the minimum rear yard depth is 9 meters, and to permit lot coverage of 38.6%, whereas the maximum lot coverage is 35%, and that's at 6 Galbraith Court. The next item is notice of a public meeting to take place on October 9th at 10 a.m. And this is regarding an application for a minor variance by Adam and Katarzyna McLeod to permit an additional residential unit, a minimum of 4 meters from the front lot line, whereas the minimum front yard depth is 6 meters, and to permit an additional residential unit within an accessory structure to encroach into a front yard, whereas the zoning bylaw provides that an additional residential unit within an accessory structure may only be permitted in the rear yard or interior side yard. The last item relates to a public meeting as well on the same date, and it's regarding an application for consent by Sherry Leanne Cannon for the purpose of creating one new residential building lot for the development of 12 townhouse dwelling units at 125 Centennial Avenue. Your Worship, if there's no further items from the members for this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to the inclusion of non-discrimination and right to refuse clause in facility rental permits and policies. I've motioned that report PRF 3225 relating to the inclusion of non-discrimination and rights to refuse clause in facility rental permits and policies be received for information. And further, the council endorse the proposed clause and associated policy updates authorizing staff to implement them in facility rental permits and booking processes. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. A question to Adrian. Under the right to refuse, cancel, or terminate, you go through a bit of a process there of at the booking stage and canceling. But if someone misled the information in their application, and it turned out that it was breaching our policy, I just have some concern as to putting our staff at risk of removing any individual or group from a facility if activities during the rental are found to be in breach of this policy. That has the potential to be confrontational. And I'm curious whether we've had any discussions with the police on this one. It's one that, I think of in the summertime where we have a lot of summer students are working on the city's behalf, and suddenly they encounter something and they step forward. Anyway, I'd be just curious if any concerns are flagged on your side, should you have to remove an individual or a group.
Adrian?
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Peters. Certainly, we don't want to put our staff into any uncomfortable situations, so we would make sure that we would either call bylaw or the police. They're aware of that procedure. I haven't directly talked to the police about this policy, But it would be something that we would lean on them for in order to enforce. But we wouldn't expect staff to go in there and to deal with it themselves.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. I would appreciate that consultation should take place with the police service and our bylaw enforcement officers. You know, I've seen our bylaw enforcement officers at work. And I just think that we need to make sure that everything is coordinated with everybody and that we're all on the same page. So I'd wholeheartedly support consultation. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor?
I want to thank Adrian and her group for bringing this idea forward. I think it's very important. My curiosity is there any other place in our city applications that this should be looked at? My first thinking was Special Events Committee, and I'm just not throwing this out to Adrian by any means, but Special Events Manual, should that be updated as such that we can say yes or no to an application for a special event or flag raising or other areas that maybe staff could report to me on? Thank you.
I guess Councillor Clark may want to answer also, but on flag raisings, proclamations, and most of our special events, they have the added touch of coming here to council to be voted on also. Certainly the proclamations and flag raising. So they come to us as a letter and council makes that decision directly. With what we're doing here with our Recreation and Parks Department is giving them guidelines with which to follow on who could rent facilities without it having to come to council for that reason. But Councillor Clark, if you'll agree with something we'll ask at special events.
Yeah, I see that as part of the special events permitting, and that would just be part of the review.
Yep. But good point. It's because we got to have no place it can sneak by. So Adrian, thank you for putting this together in such a comprehensive way, but we'll make sure that from a proclamation and special events point of view, it can also be covered. Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your Worship, if there's no further items for this committee, we'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to 35 Kane Street parking. I have motion that report ES 3725 relating to 35 Kane Street parking be received for information. Moved by Councillor Woodkey, second by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Taylor?
I'm glad to see that this was brought up a couple of months ago and has been looked after and hopefully solved. It talks about converting 5 of the 2-hour parking spaces to paid spaces in the St. Catharines lot by the railway tracks. Is that a go? And if I would certainly support that idea if it isn't.
I think the report says could be. We had a conversation about those spots today, and I did not get a chance to go back out and look as to how many of them are used as 2-hour parking. But you're right, maybe as 12-hour permit parking, it may make a difference. Councillor Peters, can you help me with that? Do you know the answer to the question?
Still coincidental, Your Worship, I was going to be raising St. Catharines parking lot, new business tonight. So
then we can defer it to staff at this point to say, can we get a report back as to how much that lot's being used and if converting it from 2-hour to 12-hour makes sense?
Well, no, I think Mr. Councillor Taylor's, asked a really good question because there's some challenges that are coming up as a result of some redevelopment at the food bank and the Legion and a loss of a lot of parking spots. But as someone whose property virtually backs onto that St. Catharines lot, it's amazing how underutilized it is as well, too. It's wonderful to have a great parking lot, but, I'd like to see that whole parking lot reviewed from the tourist parking spots all the way northerly to Kane Street, because I notice even the daycare has now changed their use, and parking spots that were originally being used for clients of the daycare have now been reverted to staff use, and now all these other parking spots sit vacant all day. So anyway, I support.
So I'm just asking, can we defer, say yes to this report, but ask for further information on the St. Catharines parking lot? Okay. Kevin, did you want to, Mr. Gilbeck, can you answer us now?
Certainly, through the mayor to council, the report just provides a suggestion. So if it's council's direction to convert some of the 2-hour on-street parking spaces to permit spaces, we can certainly do that through traffic and parking bylaw amendment. To conduct a specific study for one parking lot, I probably would defer that to the parking management study that's getting underway through the RFP process, which would take a little bit longer. You can imagine how long a study would take. If we're looking to provide a more immediate type of solution, I would just need that direction from council to go and make that bylaw amendment to do that.
I see nods that, yes, go ahead and do that if you can.
Sorry, your worship, that direction's a bit out of order. We just need to deal with the motion first.
Out of order. I'm not sure I've been called out of order before. Yeah. Okay. We didn't say yes, Kevin. Well, you can get back to us and tell us kind of what you think. Was that in order?
Your worship, if we just conclude the vote, and then if council wishes to provide direction, I can note that in the
Okay.
minutes.
On the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Gee, is there any leftover work to be done?
Your worship, I'll just note that council provided direction to the Environmental Services Director to look into change over from the 2-hour parking to 12-hour permit parking in the Upper St. Catherine lot.
Yeah, on my minutes, it now says that motion lost, and it did carry. Okay. It's on the record anyway. Perfect. Next.
Thank you, Your worship. We'll now move into new business. First item relates to the Canada Public Transit Fund Contribution Agreement and the 2025 Transit Vehicle Procurement. I have a motion that report ES 3825 relating to the Canada Public Transit Fund Contribution Agreement and 2025 Transit Vehicle Procurement be received for information, and further that a bylaw be prepared authorizing mayor and clerk to sign and execute the Canada Public Transit Fund Contribution Agreement with the Government of Canada, and further the council authorize the 2025 replacement of 2 transit buses through the Metrolinx Joint Transit Procurement Initiative. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Herbert?
Yep, thank you, worship. When we buy 2 new buses, what happens to the 2 that are replaced? Are they sold or are they traded in, or are they just zero?
Through the mayor to Councillor Herbert, they go through the disposition process. So we'll put them on GovDeals, and whatever residual value that we can get from them, we'll take that.
Councillor Clark, did you have a question too?
Yeah, I just wondered what type of buses. Are we at the point where we can apply for electric buses, or are they available to us?
I'll let Kevin answer that one.
Through the mayor to Councillor Clark, small battery electric bus market is still evolving at this point. We couldn't get into it, but it's very, very costly at this point. The upcoming capital budget's going to look for doing a transit electrification and master servicing plan that'll help us determine how we can electrify our transit fleet. As you can appreciate, maybe the routing needs to change the DeWalt battery in it, or whatever the case may be.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, worship. That's an interesting question about electric buses. Correct me if I'm wrong, a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago in London, they had 12 buses shut down because there was a problem with electric bus, and the routes were all shut down for the whole day, or because there was a problem with the electric buses. Anyway, I don't know if you know why, but.
Through the mayor to Councillor Herbert, yes, I am aware of, I think it was the school buses that were compromised, so they had to go through additional safety inspections, and I think they're all back on the road now.
Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Are there Canadian manufacturers of the buses? Because, I heard some discussion out of the fire services of tariff impacts on new fire equipment going forward. And is there a potential that there's going to be a tariff impact on procuring these buses that's going to add to the cost, or do we have sole Canadian suppliers?
Mr. Dealbeck?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peters, this is a joint procurement initiative through Metrolinx. So there are going to be some components to the bus that come from the States. But Creative Carriage was the successful bidder. I believe they're in Brant County for the assembly of all that. So most of it would be through Canadian product.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the 2025 Drinking Water Quality Management System Management Review. I have motion that the management review for the 2025 Drinking Water Quality Management System be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters, Councillor Clark.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. One of the things that really struck me, I have a couple questions, but that really struck me in this report was the topic of real and apparent water loss. I note in another report on metering, we also make reference to water loss, but as well through theft and tampering. But losing 360,000 cubic meters a year, that's a lot of water. And it's a lot of lost revenue, a lot of wasted energy to produce that water, get that water to the city. I'm concerned that has some of it. It's not all going to just, I'm assuming, just drain into the ground. Does that have potential to seep into our sanitary systems and then causing more water? We're treating the water effectively twice. So I'm curious to hear what the mitigation strategy is to deal with water losses. And then I'll come back to another comment and question on water quality.
Mr. Dealbeck?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peters, water loss can range year to year. So looking at it in isolation isn't necessarily always, but it's best to look at it over a cumulative period. And so the range of water loss is between 13 and 9% is typically what we've been seeing. We're tracking at 12% right now. There's always a bit of a delay in what we're reporting versus what's being billed. So we always expect that to drop as well. So this is a half a year's worth of water. It's been consumed, but it hasn't been billed for. So you see that variation as well. As you noted, there's another subsequent report here to try and help deal with some of that water loss through our metering replacement program, which was one of the action items identified from our management review meeting minutes to try to help address this.
Great, thanks. And my second question, it's more of a comment that the water quality, I noted the area water system, I think within the past week, issued a release on this turnover of the water in Lake Erie. It's an annual occurrence, and it does have an impact on taste and odor. And I would just hope that notwithstanding the fact that the water board is issuing the releases, that it becomes part of the city's communication strategy, because suddenly, all of a sudden, on social media, my water tastes bad. It smells, and it just sort of mushrooms and gets out of control when there's a logical answer to it. So I guess it's just a comment that I'd like to ensure that city staff, as these notices come out from the water board, that we do what we can to educate the public that this is a natural occurrence that takes place in the Great Lakes annually or sometimes semi-annually, and it does have impact on taste and odor.
And I will say that I think, believe in today, we had a social media piece on tasting water quality from our city. So we'll keep that up as long as we hear it from the public, we go out and try and explain it to more. Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I noticed that back in 2024, there was a water test that was done that was adverse. And I'm just wondering if that, if the root cause of that has been addressed, or whether it's a system issue that can reoccur just because of the way the system's designed. And my other question was just, did we get lucky? Like it says through routine testing, and we happened to catch it on a day, and within a day we had shut things down and issued a boil water. I'm just wondering how the testing goes about, or could have it occurred and people got sick, and we only wouldn't have found the test, say, because it was random, and a week later or 2 weeks later or something.
Let's hear about the detail of that, Kevin.
Through council to councillor, or through the mayor to Councillor Clark. So adverse samples can happen for many different reasons. Could be something in the container that before it gets tested, something could happen at the lab. There's many different reasons for it. And so that's why the procedure is to retest right away. Because typically we find that most of these are a result of the sampling process more so than there's a systemic issue with the system. You would know that there'd be an issue because the boiled water advisory would be extended and the area expanded. So that's when we know that there's something else going on. We've had one in 2024. We had one as well this summer, past summer as well. They typically are just the 2 days that it takes to get the resampling completed.
Okay. Further questions on the water report? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to water meter replacement and advanced metering infrastructure. A motion that report ES 3925 relating to water meter replacement and advanced metering infrastructure be received for information. And further, the council directs staff to undertake the procurement for water meter replacements with a standalone automated meter infrastructure system subject to 2026 budget approval. Moved by Councillor Wookey, second by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Interesting, expensive. Being on the Integris board, I know that you build in future capital costs and your cost of service application to the province. In terms of this water supply, is the money for this going to be from rates, or is there capital required from us? Sorry if I missed it, but I see it from a lens of a regulated utility, and I was thinking that I'm hoping that a lot of this comes out of water rates rather than our general levy. Thanks for any information got there.
Mr. Gilbert?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wookey, I have some information. So the funding source for this is through water rates to do that. And while there is a significant initial capital cost, the increase in meter accuracy, as well as the reduction in operations and efficiencies, help to repay the overall capital investment over a period of like 13.78 years. So that's the life cycle of a meter. So it fits within itself.
Councillor Wookey?
Thanks, Your Worship. So the upfront cost of this will be carried, will that debt be carried within the water unit itself, or are we carrying that for the water system? Because again, I see it like, I just want to make sure I understand where the money's coming from. I understand that there'll be a payback period of 13.7 years. Thank you.
Yep.
Through the mayor to Councillor Wookey, it's Adam's first day, so I'm not going to get into that too much, and that's why we're going to take it to the budget cycle. I anticipate it should come from the water reserves, and then that way it's kind of self-sufficient through that way.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Kevin, I just want to point out that from this report, it also gives us a quicker response to someone who's getting a very high water bill. once these meters are in place, can tell us on that day that somebody just used a whole pile more water. We've had many cases here where a month later, someone gets a huge water bill and then comes to us for support on that bill. This sounds like another great way to catch some of the water theft or water loss that Councillor Peter was talking about before. And as Councillor Wookie said, kind of pays for itself over time because we can react quicker. Good.
Through the mayor, I just wanted to say, yes, absolutely. The intent of this is to provide more information in the customer's hands through an online portal, similar to Hydro, where they can track their consumption. You can set alerts or alarms. So if you see your water consumption go up, maybe I did leave the garden hose on in the backyard like I did last night. So that's helpful for those types of things.
Great. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Last item for this committee is the municipal access agreement relating to PowerCo. I have motion that report ID 2325 relating to the municipal access agreement for PowerCo be received for information. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
If there's no further items for this committee, we'll now move into corporate governance and administration. Nothing on the agenda at this time, unless there are any items from the members. Seeing none, Your Worship, Council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of Council and Committee of the Whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Wookie, second by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees. We have received a report from the police chief to the Police Services Board relating to the 2025 mid-year overtime budget analysis. That's for the members' information. Next item, Your Worship, is
Worship, this is, thanks, Your Worship. You know, I see that the chief is here tonight, and I wouldn't mind hearing from the chief, and even just in a general sense of, well, he is here, just how things are going out on the streets in general, because I think the one thing that struck me in this report, in particular, is the mental health related incidents and the reduction in that regard as well. So, you know, if council's prepared to, I'd like to indulge that we, you know, have some comments from the chief and, you know, highlight how they've been able to achieve this. And as I say, that the mental health related incidents is a really good news story as well, too. Thanks, Your Worship.
Incredibly so. Chief?
Well, good evening, through Your Worship to Councillor Peters. This report was submitted to the Police Services Board in September at the board meeting. I agree. There have been a number of pressures that we've been facing over the last several years, and currently today, to meet requirements of adequate and effective police services. Chronic criminality, weakened judicial accountability for offenders. I'm not sure who may have observed my testimony last Thursday at the House of Commons. I was asked to speak on behalf of the residents of St. Thomas from a smaller community, and as a police chief with some lived experience, and I provided it, and I wanted not to hold back, and I provided our pressure points, which we're seeing violence increase at remarkable rates throughout Canada, throughout Ontario, and smaller communities in St. Thomas is no stranger to that. We had 2 armed robberies in September, one at a bank, one at a restaurant. We had a home invasion in September. These incidents that were not occurring 10, 15 years ago are occurring now at a remarkable rate. And it's my job as your police chief and to make sure that data is honest and transparent, and that I speak loudly on the requirement. And so our officers are doing what they can. We remain one of the cheapest cost per capita police services in the province of Ontario of any similar police service our size at $358 per household. Our officers are being stretched at 1 to 568 citizens, which is one of the highest, which we want to bring down lower. And so we've had 15%, near 15% over the last 2 years reduction in overall crime severity, which is, I would say, very respectable. 32% reduction in nonviolent crime, which is a national high. That's a nonviolent crime severity. So there are some very big positives. And that's in large part to the Police Services Board and this council for investing wisely in police resources and prioritizing public safety. But one of the concerning indicators is violent crime. And we're going to speak to that later this fall with the 2026 budget, which I'd be glad to get into at the appropriate time. But the requirement is there, and we need to continue to have a safe community. In terms of this report, I requested that this be sent to council. The board approved my request, and it's before you tonight with regards to where we were in 2024 with our overtime court appearance budget and the pressures that we felt, in addition to critical staffing gaps that we had in 2024 with regards to 2 homicides and major crime investigations and that uptick in violent crime, which was pressing our resources. And last year we reached $428,000, which was over budget by $298,000 over our $130,000 budget. That's a very low budget for overtime court appearances. We upped that budget in 2025 to $150,000, and this is the point that this report makes, is between January 1st and August 31st, 2025, we've been able to reduce overtime costs by 60%, 58% reduction in callback costs, 59% reduction in court security costs, and one of the biggest here, a 94% reduction in staffing supplements for critical roles. So in January, I directed that we come up with new strategies for deployment based on the new investments that this council approved and the board approved, and they're working. So we've had some big reductions in overtime and callback that I just wanted you to be aware that we're doing all we can to stretch our dollars as far as we can. We're doing all we can to stretch our officers as far as we can. You are right. There's some remarkable highs here in reductions. Our incidents continue to rise. That's the requirement of a growing city. I would suggest that chronic criminality, weakened bail laws, and perhaps an overburdened social infrastructure post-COVID put us in this spot. And I've been quoted as saying, and I believe it's true, that I wish we were in a different spot. I wish there were places for people to go to. But this council supported us, and the board has supported us in having innovative ways that other cities are looking at with their special constable team. And that puts police officers back to core functions. And that special constable team is that team that's to take that time to get down on a knee and to connect those individuals with the right care, right person approaches. But there's no question, there are a number, I'd say 10 to 15 to 20, who refuse those services. And they refuse and they want to live rough. And that's where we're spinning our wheels. And they're the ones where we're seeing the carts and the White Street parking lot issues. We got to keep in mind this is social disorder, and we don't want to put everything into the bucket of public safety and say it's a public safety matter. And I know later tonight we'll talk about other matters regarding that, but we feel our teams are doing the best they can. Despite the increases in incidents and events, we will definitely exceed 25,000 calls for service this year. That's how many police officers are required to attend calls. In response to your comments about mental health, yes, there is a reduction. So our services that are in place are CMHA workers that are embedded in the police service that in a co-response model, we go to the scene, our officers, we call the CMHA team, that relieves our officers and the CMHA, the right person, right care approach happens where we can relieve ourselves from that, go to the next matter, and the appropriate people work on that and try to support those individuals in the community. I have submitted a grant. We're waiting for an update from the provincial government on the Mental Health Crisis Response Enhancement Grant. We've been waiting for months on that, and I know that the government is working at appointing those grants, but that will put a nurse on the team from STEG. That's the next innovative piece. We have CMHA. We're trying to collaborate, and Karen Davies from the hospital will be supporting us with a nurse once we are approved, if we are approved, with grant money. But I can tell you, and this might be a good moment to advise, that grant money's not coming the way it once did. And we've been highly successful in years past getting provincial grant dollars. The province, the Ontario government has been very supportive of policing in recent years. That is not the issue. It's fair and equitable allocation of grant money throughout the province, and we have had years of success receiving grant money. There's an estimation of about $1.9 million reduction next year in grant money alone, which affects local taxpayers. But we'll continue to write grants, hope to receive them, and that'll always help our bottom line when and if they're announced next year. But there is an estimation of about $1.9 million reduction in grants next year. And if it's any indication that we're in October and I still haven't received indication of the MCERT grant, that might be a signal that we're not getting it. And so a nurse might not attend work on this team. So that stat is good, that it is going down with the mental health apprehensions. Keep in mind that the apprehensions speak to the officer's actions when it's beyond supports in the community, and our officers have to take action to apprehend that individual, take them involuntary before a doctor to seek supports in a Form 1. So we have seen a 10.3% reduction in those calls. So I think we have everything lined up the way we should. We're seeing reductions. Things are starting to work. But I will say that our progress and those gains we've made are fragile. And we don't want to lose ground. And that is where 2026, we have the discussions on where we need to be and to meet the requirement. And I'll continue to be honest with our community and this council and the board to make sure we have the resources we need. So hope that answers your question, Councillor Peter.
You missed one piece of it, Chief, and I want you to brag on it a little bit. Of the amount of great progress you've made in the mental health treatment of officers and their ability to stay on the job and getting support they need during their job.
Thank you, Your Worship, for asking me that question. This is a big one. I can tell you, my peers, when I attend meetings with the other 43 chiefs from the province of Ontario, and I hear of my peers in mid-sized communities, same as ours, a little bigger, a little smaller, with 27 officers off, 24 officers off for occupational stress injuries or post-traumatic stress injuries. We have one officer off. And we've hired an individual, a doctor by the name of Dr. Kim Briggs. And Kim has brought us some wellness navigation programs, some suicide prevention programs, and I mandated it in 2024 that all officers, all staff, civilian or sworn, will meet with her in a training scenario for an 8-hour session on resiliency and how to stay on the job if you're experiencing some mental health issues. And I guess by the results, it's working. And so we've decided that we'll move operationally towards having Dr. Briggs work with us every year, a little bit more to keep our officers in the job. We've always subscribed to flexible accommodations, getting people from home back to work in some capacity. But our one-off does speak to us, and it should speak to us that we must be doing something well, and so we should pat ourselves on the back for the work that the board has approved me to do, and the budget that this council has approved for us to take forward to take care of the wellness of our officers. But I must stress that 1 to 568 is still very high when we're stretching our officers. The closest comparator city very near to this to our location is 1 to 450. So we're well over where we should be on that. I'll leave it at that. Your worship, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, your worship. Chief, just have a couple of really specific little questions. Arson's a very interesting crime to talk about because, and I'd like to know, I'm guessing it is not part of the violent crime stats, or is it? I mean, it's a property crime, but it's more than that. So where does that fit in? And secondly, just curious, is a level 1 assault count as a violent crime, or does it have to be like a assault causing bodily harm for it to be included? Thanks.
Chief.
Through your worship to Councillor Wookie. Assault, I'll go there first. Any assault is a violent crime. So that answers that. The arson, I would suggest everybody in council, I'm sure, heard my rhetoric. We lost an individual in this city who had been out on several judicial interim release orders. So that is pretrial recidivism, several crimes committed after committing other crimes and going to court and being released, decided we didn't need a heritage building in our downtown any longer and decided to drop that building by fire. I would suggest, I can tell you the textbook answer here is arson's a property offense. It's a property crime. However, that could have cost us lives. That's right next to 614 Talbot Street, which is the chronic, the very first Indwell building, as you all know. And we had to respond in ways with the fire department to evacuate a number of buildings in that area and occupants in that area. So at what point does it become, so this individual decided to use fire as a weapon and could have killed somebody. And we were loud and clear on that. And I did bring those details to the House of Commons last Thursday evening. I'm not so sure we'll see much progress, but at least we got an opportunity to voice from a small and mid-size. And as your chief of police, I've been able to discuss the pressure points in terms of chronic criminality and violent crime and individuals attending court and being released. And they're in my estimation, in my opinion, the gaming that's happening. And individuals know that they're not going to be held. They know that enforcement of bail provisions, bail fail to complies are minimal. Court times at a premium. MAG resources are at a premium, Ministry of Attorney General, so the Crown prosecution and judges times at a premium. So things are being dropped into a bucket of not in the public interest more than I'd like to see. And so I'll continue to have my meetings with judges, with MAG, with the Ministry of Attorney General, to ensure that our voices are heard loud and clear. This is not unique to St. Thomas. This is happening everywhere. And the federal government has to, in my opinion, respectfully, adjust. Small pieces will go a long way to make safer communities. So,
Councillor Wookie.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Because arson's a very interesting one because you think of a property crime being like theft or something like that. But I mean, this is such a serious property crime. And as you said, it becomes a personal crime that certainly in my world, I'd love to see a change regarding that specifically, whether it's release, but for arson specifically, because we are example number one of why that needs to happen. So thanks, Chief.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just a quick one. The committee that you spoke to the other day, I'm just wondering if the Crown Attorney, the provincial Crown Attorneys are on the same page as the Chiefs Association, because weekly when we see the court dispositions, even locally, there seems to be a lot of times where someone with multiple charges, half of them are dropped and stayed. I'm just wondering whether the same kind of comments that you were sharing are shared by the Crowns in those conversations.
You're touching on something that is very real. And so there's an independence protocol, obviously, between the different branches, the police. We make our own decisions on what charges we want to push forward. We obviously, in major cases, there's legislation that requires us to speak to Crown Attorneys to get to make sure we're on the same page for homicides and major crime. But generally, there's independence protocols that we will lay what we feel should go to them. And then it's up to them to put it in whatever bucket they decide it goes to. Are they going to prosecute? Are they going to put it not in the public interest bucket? Are they going to put it into this could be declared by diversion? My problem with all of that is, and I've had many meetings with our local Crown attorney, is what is the accountability? Like where's the accountability when we continually, our community is continually being victimized? We have businesses being victimized. We have individuals being victimized, and people are falling through the cracks. And so as long as there is, we're going to continue to lay the charges. That's my direction to our officers. And the Crown will decide which bucket it goes into. And so you speak about the relationship between Crown and police. It's definitely one that we want to make sure is firm and is fulsome. A lot of the problems, I believe, are not with contested bail hearings. So that's ones that the Crown actually wants to take forward in front of a justice of the peace or a Crown attorney. And those contested bail hearings are not the ones I'm talking about, because that's everyone's given the right to have a hearing to be released on a judicial interim release order or go into custody. It's the consent releases that I have a problem with. And I think there's far too many consent releases occurring between defense lawyer and perhaps prosecutors. And why is that? Is it because there's not enough time in the day, not enough court time? All things that I don't think are excuses. But I don't want to put this all on the Crown. There could be case weaknesses too at our end. Is there enough evidence? Do we get enough statements to push a case forward? And that's why they're putting it into a bucket of not in the public interest. But I think too many are being put into a column of not in the public interest, which I don't agree with. And I think it actually is in the public interest to pursue somebody. It doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be an either or circumstance where we can be compassionate for those that have social determinants of health conditions, the homelessness, the mental health, the substance use disorders, but we can also expect that to hold them accountable. And a lot of those individuals, and we're seeing an over attribution of these crimes being blamed on social determinants of health. And I think it's wrong. And I think it's happened over the last 5 years. We're getting we're getting too tolerant to suggest and say that every individual who is downtrodden, if they commit a crime, we're supposed to just rinse it and give them a free pass. We're all about compassion. We're all about right person, right care. We can't arrest our way out of this. We've been saying this for 5 years, and you've all heard me speak on this, and my predecessors speak on this, but there has to be some accountability. And we can't continue to see our community victimized. And that's why we end up speaking about a budget of 22% increase. How is it that we're at this point? We are at this point when our closest comparator has 20 more officers than us and a less violent crime severity than us. Data is starting to speak to us, and we want to be very careful that we're continuing to provide adequate and effective services. So, Councillor Clark, you're on to something with that, and I actually have meetings coming up with judiciary on that and trying to find that data. But I don't think it's with the contested bail hearings; it's with the consent releases that's happening. We could arrest 10 today; they'll go to court, and there's some consent releases. Far too many agreed to, as opposed to let's take it to it, let's go before a justice of the peace and let's contest this. And if the individual gets out, then that was how the system's supposed to work. I don't think there's enough resources is where this is going to boil down to. There's not enough Crown resources. There's not enough judiciary to hear all of the contested hearings. So a lot of consents are occurring.
Chief, I want to thank you for helping share this tonight. And Councillor Peters, thank you for suggesting since we had the chief here to have this conversation. You did St. Thomas proud on Parliament Hill last week, Chief. It's having chaired committees on Parliament Hill and watching you talk about St. Thomas in the open and honest way you did, I think was just right for our community to hear what you're thinking, but for the rest of Canada to hear some of the great things we have done. But also what we're thinking. So thank you for your role up there last week.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You were on Zoom. I couldn't heckle. No, it's great work.
Your Worship will now move into petitions and communications. First item is a request for proclamation and flag raising from the Central Community Health Center. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 2025 as Community Health and Wellbeing Month in the City of St. Thomas, with the Community Health Center flag being flown from October 9th to 15th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is a request from the Talbot Trail Toastmasters for a proclamation, flag raising, and jumbo lighting. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 27th to 31st, 2025 as Toastmasters Week in the City of St. Thomas, with the Toastmaster flag being flown October 27th to 31st and the jumbo monument being lit in aqua blue from October 27th to 31st, 2025. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is a copy of a letter addressed to the Premier of Ontario from the City of Kitchener regarding fees associated with paper billing. Next item is a letter received from the Solicitor General thanking Mayor Preston for a meeting at the recent Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference. The next one is a letter received from the Minister of Finance thanking Mayor Preston for a meeting at the recent Association of the Municipalities of Ontario conference. And the last item under petitions is a letter received from the Minister for Seniors regarding an extension to the deadline for nominations for the 2025 Ontario Senior Achievement Award until December 1st, 2025. Your Worship, if there's no further items of petition or communication, we'll now move into unfinished business of council. And seeing no items, we'll now move into new business of council.
Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. I do hope you jump into this part of the conversation as well. But on Thursday, October the 2nd, I attended, as well as so did you and other members of the Health Recruitment Partnership. We attended an event that was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, Doug Terry Holmes, and our Health Recruitment Partnership. It was a welcome event for our 10 doctors that have been recruited this year, of which 7 did attend. They received a community gift package from the Chamber and some of their associated members that were there in attendance, the community members at large. It was very, very much appreciated by the doctors, and they asked us to do it again. And at this morning's Health Recruitment Partnership Committee meeting, I did actually extend those comments out, and they were very warmly received that, yes, it's a good idea to have another event. But it was a precedent-setting year of having 10 doctors recruited for our Elgin St. Thomas Health Recruitment Partnership. And if I could continue,
Please.
The Health Recruitment Scholarship is now up and live on the city's website. It's our first point of contact that we have with local residents across the county and the city of St. Thomas that are entering medical school, whether in Ontario, in Canada at large, or at an international school. We supply a $1,000 a year scholarship for up to 5 years of their term time in medical school. And applications are available in the clerk's office and online. So I do encourage, encourage people to do that. And we look forward to the Home for the Holidays event coming up in December to hand out those scholarships. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, your throat's a little raspy. You're talking too much at Health Recruitment Partnership.
Evidently,
Yeah.
yes.
But thank you for bringing up the doctor's event the other night. It was 40 people in attendance, and many of them new docs we've attracted to our community. So that was great. Also noticed today on the second issue on the scholarship piece, many of our communities around us are now have now started a social media campaign about the health recruitment, and I've been sharing and copying, and everybody's around us, and I count everybody here who uses social media to also get the word out. Boy, we've had a lot. Sorry, Councillor Herbert, you please go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Well, as we're nearing the end of the season for road reconstruction and sewers and everything, just a couple of comments. I travel Center Street every night. They really did a great job on Center Street. I mean,
Yeah.
the details, and I look for those things when I'm walking my dog every night, and they did everything. It really looks great. My second comment or question would be, could we get an update on the Burwell Fairview Bridge replacement? How close
Sure.
are things?
I think Corey's been updating us like nothing, but Kevin, give us a free commercial on Burwell and Talbot.
Certainly, through the mayor to Councilor Herbert, you're right. Weekly updates come out on every Friday on the status of the project. But I can advise, maybe for the general public that, this project's been going on for most of the construction season and they're still on one half of the roadway. How are they possibly going to get this done before the end of the calendar year? Well, I can assure you that is the case. Most of the infrastructure is all on the north side of the road. So that's why it's taking as long as it is. We know that the box culvert for the pedestrian tunnel is the next big thing, but we did run into a couple of hiccups, as you do on major projects like this when you're removing a lot of fill. That has delayed the project. Typically, or it was supposed to be done Thanksgiving. Now it's looking to be done at the end of November. So we did have legitimate claims for additional delay, which we have authorized, but that's kind of the update on where we're at. So we'll see soon. You saw that the curbing is in. We'll see some paving happening soon, and then we'll start to flip things over in the next coming weeks and wrap it up a little bit. So it's a little bit easier to just do the grading and the road restoration work. There's not as much underground work on the next phase, if you will.
Other new business? Look, it's been a long time since we've had a council meeting. And so there's a number of things occurred during that period of time that we really didn't brag on ourselves about. But whether it's Oktoberfest or the CBC Last Man Standing event at the Joe Thornton Center, that was absolutely jam-packed and funny. And so many other things that have happened in our community. But it's been a month of almost every second or third day a city event. And we're pretty proud looking when we can put, 5,000 people on the street during Oktoberfest and fill Joe Thornton Arena with a number of people and show that when CBC puts it on air and show what St. Thomas looks like when St. Thomas comes together too. So I thank the whole city, and I know I'm missing some things because I didn't make all my notes for tonight. But thank you, St. Thomas, for coming out and playing with us. We've had a lot of fun in this fall, and you notice how long we can keep summer if we keep events going. I'll give up. Oh, well, okay, so last Friday night, you all know we beat the county all the time at golf, but didn't happen in wheelchair basketball last Friday night. I know Councillor Taylor was doing really well with wheelchair basketball, and Andrew Lawton had a good time, but Grant Jones is an incredible wheelchair basketball player. The warden did a great job. We didn't really keep score, but you always know when you're getting your game handed to you, and it was as hard an effort as I've ever done. I was never much of a basketball player, you may tell by my physique, but it was a hard thing to do in wheelchair basketball. So I thank the Accessibility Committee and all of the people who came and set up booths and showed what accessibility can look like in our community. But wheelchair basketball was about as hard as it gets. So thank you for those who came out. I know that I got there and Councillor Taylor's practicing and looking pretty good at it. I was going to feign an injury and leave right then so he could fill in, but no, I ended up, and it was like a long game. We played for 35, 40 minutes. It was tough. So thank you, Madam Clerk, for letting us talk a bit about that. It was a great event to also have in our community for everybody who came out, and there was a good number of people there. And I'm done. Anybody else on a new event? Great. Let's go on with the next.
Okay, your worship, thank you. Next order of business are bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws, moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin.
Okay, questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 6th day of October 2025.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to authorize internet and telephone voting as alternative voting methods for the 2026 municipal election in the city of St. Thomas.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Dr. Zulu Okoligwe, and this relates to health recruitment partnership incentive funding.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fourth bylaw is a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 115 to the City of St. Thomas official plan. This is to permit revisions to additional residential unit policies and to amend the community improvement plan map.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fifth bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 50-88, being the zoning bylaw for the City of St. Thomas. This again relates to revisions to additional residential unit regulations.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Sixth bylaw is a bylaw to adopt community improvement plan amendment number 2. This is to permit revisions to community improvement programs and eligibility.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Any opposed? It's still carried. Next bylaw, please.
Seventh bylaw is a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 116 to the City of St. Thomas official plan. This relates to the community planning permit system.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw, please.
Eighth and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Indwell Community Homes. This relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund Municipal Contribution Agreement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I rise and report the successful passing of 8 bylaws.
Good work.
I have a motion by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 8 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
No notice, public notices or notices of motion this evening. There is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with 5 matters of a proposed or pending disposition of land, 3 matters of position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, a matter of the security of the property of the municipality, and a personal matter about an identifiable individual. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We've moved into closed session and we will return from closed session simply to pass what we get done during closed session and to adjourn for the evening. So thank you for turning in and watching tonight, and we'll give us a couple of minutes to get into closed session. Thank you.
Your worship, at this time, I have a motion that council rise from closed session. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions and comments on rising? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? We have risen.
One item to deal with in open session, and that is bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
I Have a motion by Counselor Peters, seconded by Counselor Baldwin Sands, that the bylaws being now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw, ninth on the total agenda, is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and PowerCo Canada, Inc. This relates to a hydro easement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I rise and report the successful passage.
There's three more.
Oh, you got three more? I don't have them in front.
The next bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and PowerCo Canada, Inc. This relates to a sewer connection.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Next bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Hydro One Networks, Inc. This relates to an easement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. This relates to Ontario transfer payment.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I rise and report the successful passing of 4 bylaws.
I have a motion by Counselor Peters, seconded by Counselor Baldwin Sands, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 4 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time and gross, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That is carried.
No further items, your worship. At this time, I have a motion for adjournment by Counselor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Counselor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.